All right, so here we have the second lesson for this week. Still working on factoring trinomials with guess and check, but now we're going to be looking on the a value is not 1, so something other than that. Please have a pencil and some paper to be able to jot some things down on that will help you with your practice. Okay, so I will recap the first lesson of just guess and check when a does equal 1, but then I'll be showing you some examples for how to use guess and check when a is not 1. Okay, and then practice that I want you to do. So again, we have several ways of factoring. We will review all of those types next week in your lesson. So just a reminder that we've used greatest common factor, grouping, difference of squares, and now we are using that guess. So remember, we are only using the guess and check method on a polynomial that is a trinomial, something with 3 terms, and it specifically has to be in that ax squared plus bx plus c form. Okay, remember GCF could be used on any number of terms, grouping could only be used when there are 4 terms, and DOS can only be used on 2 terms, a binomial. Okay, so here to recap earlier this week, the just regular guess and check when that a value is 1. Remember, you want to factor it into 2 sets of parentheses. We know in order to get x squared, I need to take x times x, so I'm going to put that in the front of my parentheses. And now I want to look at the factors of 3. So the factors of 3 are just 1 and 3. I want to know how to combine those. Do I add them? Do I subtract them to get that middle term of 2? So if I add them, I get 4. If I subtract them, I get 2. So I know that one of these numbers has to be negative since I'm subtracting. And I want to end up with more positives, which means my smaller number gets the negative. So there are my 2 numbers, -1 and +3. So that is that final answer. Remember, to check your work, you can distribute that back out. So you get x squared plus 3x minus 1x minus 3. And those middle terms do combine to give me that +2x. And the front and the back stay the same. So there is the original problem that we were given. Okay, so again, the final answer, x minus 1 times x plus 3. Okay, so now we want to look at when we have that a value not being 1. So when you look here at these problems, on number 1, the a value is 3. On number 2, the a value is 7. And on number 3, the a value is 2. So I'm still going to set up my parentheses here. We're still factoring with guess and check, so it's going to be set up the same way. But I have a little bit more to look at now because I don't just want to get x squared or n squared or v squared at the beginning. I have to get a number with that squared. So like here on the first one, I know I need to get 3 when I multiply. The only combination is 1 and 3. So that means I need 1x and I need 3x. So that when I distribute, I would end up with that 3x squared. Okay, now just like we did on the other one, we're still going to go to the very last term and we're going to look at its factors. So the factors of 15 are 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Okay, now like we did in the last one, what we did is we looked and said which one of those add and subtract to give me my 4 in the middle. So when I look at 1 plus 15, that's 16, and 15 minus 1 is 14. That didn't work. 3 plus 5 is 8, 5 minus 3 is 2. That didn't work either. So some of you might be like, oh, well, there's no way to do this. But remember, we already have this 3 that's in our problem. So we're somehow going to see how we can combine this 1 and 3 with one of these sets of factors to see how I can get that 4. So for example, if I try 1 and 15 first, and with the 1 and the 3. So 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 15 is 45. Well, 1 and 45 don't combine me, or don't get me 4. So I don't want to use those. Okay, so now I'm going to see if I can look with the 3 and the 5. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15. 15 minus 3 is 12. That doesn't work. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. Let's try maybe 1 times 5 equals 5, and 3 times 3 equals 9. There we go. 9 and 5 can give me 4. Okay, so that means that I used 3 and 5. So now I just have to decide where do the 3 and the 5 go here. Which one goes here and which one goes here? Well, I did not want the 5 to get multiplied. I wanted the 5 times the 1. And remember, this is our 1 right here. So I would be putting the 5 here. Okay, and I'd be putting the 3 here. The question is what sign? So I want a positive 9 and a negative 5 to get me that positive 4. So this needs to be minus 5 and plus 3. Okay, so there's that final answer. Remember that when you distribute that out, should end up with the original problems. Like 1x times 3x is 3x squared. 1x times negative 5 is negative 5x. 3 times 3x is 9x. And then 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And those middle terms do combine to give me that 4x from the original problem. Okay, so there is my final answer. Okay, moving on to number 2. So I want to get 7n squared when I multiply, and the factors of 7 are just 1 and 7. So I know I'm going to have an n and a 7n. Okay, so now I'm going to go look at the factors of 2, which the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. And I have to figure out how I can combine 1 and 7 and 1 and 2 to give me that negative 9 in the middle there. So like 1 times 1 equals 1, and 7 times 2 equals 14. When I subtract them, I don't get 9. Okay, so that means that I need to take 1 times 2 and get 2, and 7 times 1, that gives me 7. When I add those together, I would get 9. Okay, so that means I'm using 1 and 2. Okay, so I had 7 times 1, so that means a 1 has to go here because those will get multiplied, and the 1 times 2, that 2 has to go here. And I want a negative 9, so if I had to add them, they both have to be negative, which that makes sense because a negative 1 times a negative 2 is going to give me that positive 2 here at the end. And again, I would highly encourage you to be distributing it back out to make sure you have that middle term right, because if you don't, then maybe you just need to switch around where that 1 and the 2 went. So n times 7n is 7n squared. N times negative 2 is negative 2n. Negative 1 times 7 is negative 7n. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. And these do combine to give me that negative 9 in the middle. And my outside terms are good to go. Okay, another one here, number 3. I have 2. So the factors of 2 are 1 and 2. So one of them is going to be v, and the other one is going to be 2v. Now I want to look at the factors of 21. So 1 and 21, and 3 and 7. Okay, and I want to get 1 in the middle. So like 1 times 1 equals 1, 2 times 21 equals 42. That's not going to work because 42 minus 1 is only 41. Okay, maybe 1 times 21 equals 21, and 1 times 2 equals 2. Nope, that only gives me 19. Okay, so that means that I can say I'm not using 1 and 21. I know I'm going to have to use 3 and 7. The question is, how do I combine that with 1 and 2 to get me my 1 in the middle? So maybe 1 times 3 equals 3, and 2 times 7 equals 14. See, 14 minus 3 is 11, so that doesn't work out. Okay, so then 1 times 7 equals 7. And 2 times 3 equals 6. Yeah, if I subtract 7 and 6, I get 1. So 7 and negative 6 is what I want to use. So here I'm going to put positive 7 and negative 6. No, sorry, positive 7 and negative, I need to go use negative 3 is what I need. There we go. Okay, so v times 2v is 2v squared. V times 7 is 7v. Negative 3 times 2v is negative 6v, and negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. So I have the front and the back terms, and these two in the middle do combine to give me positive 1, which is the original problem. So there is my final answer. Okay, so again, these are just going to take some more practice, knowing how to combine those numbers and seeing which ones work. So what I would encourage you to do is pause the video, try 4, 5, and 6, and see if you can get those combinations. Then play the video and I'll go through them. Or if you're really still struggling, you can go back and watch how I did those 3 again, using that guess and check with that front term being something higher than 1. Or what you can do is just keep watching the video here and I'll explain these problems and then you can go try the practice. Okay, so pause the video if you wish, keep going if you wish as well, but I'm going to take a look here at these problems. So number 4, again, I'm going to be setting up 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, I need to get 3x squared when I multiply it, so I know that the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. So one of them is going to be 3x and the other is going to be x. Again, doesn't matter if you write x in the first one and 3x in the second one or vice versa. Okay? So I know that for that 3, I'm using 1 and 3. Okay, now I want to find the factors of 9. So 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. And the question is, I want to get 26. Well, right away I see like a 3 and a 9. I know I get 27. That's really close to 26. So if I'm going to use 3 times 9 to get 27, so if I combine this one with this one, then I mean I still have 1 times 1, which equals 1. And if I subtract them, I am going to get 26. Okay, so I want negative 26, so I want a large negative this time, and positive 1. Okay, so that means I am going to use a negative 9 and a positive 1. Okay, and I want the 9 to be multiplied by the 3, so that has to go in the opposite parentheses. So minus 9 here, and then plus 1 here, and that is the final answer. Again, if you check that, okay, by distributing it out, you get 3x squared minus 27x plus 1x minus 9. So my front and my back term are right, okay, and then these two combine to give me that negative 26x. Okay, so that is the final answer there. Moving on to number 5 here. Again, going to set up my 2 parentheses. The only factors of 7 are 1 and 7. So I'm going to have 7x in one of them and x in the other. Okay, now I want the factors of 8. So 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. And I need to know which one of those sets can combine with 1 and 7 to give me that 15 in the middle. Okay. So, I see 7 times 2 would be 14, but then I have a 4. That's not going to give me 15. So let's see. If I do 7 times 4, that's 28, and subtract 2 more, that's not. So I'm not going to be using 2 and 4. Now I need to know how, well, 7 plus 8 is 15, right? So I know that I need 1 times 7 to give me 7, and 1 times 8 to give me 8, and together that would give me 15. So I need a positive 1 and a positive 8. The 1 I want to be multiplied by the 7, so it goes in the opposite. So positive 1 and then positive 8. And that is the final answer. Again, you can distribute that back out and check that out. I always encourage you to do that because if you don't get it right, then you'll know. So if I distribute, I get 7x squared plus 7x plus 8x plus 8. And those middle terms do add to give me that 15 that I started with. Okay, number 6. I'm going to set up my parentheses here. I want the factors of 2, so that's just 1 and 2. So I'm going to have a p and a 2p. Okay, and now I want the factors of 21. So 1 and 21 and 3 and 7. Remember, I'm already using 1 and 2 in my problem, so I need to know which one can I combine with here to give me 11. So 2 times 7 is 14. 14 minus 3 is 11. So I know I want the 3 and the 7. And I said 2 times 7 equals 14. And 1 times 3 gives me 3. And if I subtract them, I get 11. So I'm going to be using 3 and 7. Okay, so I'm using these two numbers right here. The 7 had to be multiplied by the 2, so I need it in the opposite parentheses as that 2 that's there. Okay, so that's positive 7. And then I had to subtract the 3 to get the 11, so this would be minus 3 right here. And again, if I check that, okay, I get 2p squared minus 3p plus 14p, and then minus 21. And those middle two do combine to give me positive 11. Okay. Now, the ones that I showed you there are really nice. Like, there's only one option for the front terms. Like that 3x squared in number 4, the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. In number 5, the only factors of 7 are 1 and 7. In number 6, the only factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Take a look at this challenge question here. Okay. The front term is 6. So now I'm kind of running into an issue because I don't just have 1 times 6. I could use 1 and 6, or I could use 2 and 3. Those are the factors of 6. Okay, so I'm going to have to decide now, like, I can't just go start my parentheses. And this is kind of where more of the, like, guess and check comes in, because I might guess 1 and 6 and put that in my answer, and maybe that doesn't work out. Or maybe I guess 2 and 3, and that doesn't work out. But now I don't really want to write anything yet because I want to know the factors of 10 that need to go together. So the factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So I kind of want to go check this all out to see which combination I'm going to need. And I need to get 11. So like if I say I'm going to stick with 1 and 6. 1 times 1, if I choose 1 and 10 here, 1 times 1 is 1, 6 times 10 is 60. That's way too high. Okay, well 1 times 10 and 6 times 1 is 6. That's 6 plus 10 is 16. That's too high for 11 still. Okay, so now let's go check. So I know I'm not using that combination. Let's go check 1 and 6 with 2 and 5. So 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 5 is 30. If I subtract that, I get 28. That's not my 11. If I take 6 times 2 and get 12, 1 times 5 is 5, 12 and 5 is 17. So that's not going to work. So 1 and 6 is not going to work. So I did narrow it down to now I know that I need 2x and 3x here. So notice I'm just guessing all of those numbers like in my head. You can do it on paper if you want. Okay, but now I know I have to use 2 and 3 because all of those combinations with 1 and 6 didn't work out. So now I'm going to say, okay, what if I use 1 and 10? Well, 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 10 is 30. That's not going to get me 11. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 10 is 20. 20 and 3, if I subtract, I don't get 11. So I know it's not 1 and 10. Okay, so now I have to know how does 2 and 3 combine with 2 and 5 to get me 11. So 2 times 2, let's try this. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 minus 4 is 11. Okay, so I know I want the negative 4, so that means up here my 2 is negative and my 5 is positive. The 2 has to be multiplied by the 2, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put the 2 in the opposite parentheses as the 2 that's already there. So this is minus 2 and the other one is plus 5. Again, if you check that, okay, so I used the 2 and the 5. If you check that, you get 6x squared minus 4x plus 15x minus 10. And there's that middle term that gives me that, nope, that gives me 11. I want negative 11, so I need to switch my signs. Okay, so there I caught myself. That's going to happen. So I'm going to erase the signs here. This one needs to be negative and this one needs to be positive. That way this would change to positive 4 and negative 15. That gives me that negative 11. And I still get negative 10 at the end and positive 6x squared in the front. Okay. So if you haven't yet tried any on your own, I would encourage you to pause the video now and try 8 and 9 by yourself. Number 9 is when that a value is 1, so that's that regular guess and check. And then number 8 is using this guess and check, but taking into account, like, what do I do for the a term? Okay. Again, if you still feel like you need something modeled to you, excuse me, You can go ahead and just go on with the video. You will have some practice to do. There'll be some extra practice that's optional, but you do need to start trying this on your own to just kind of see if you can match up those numbers, okay? So go ahead and pause the video and try these, and then I'll come back with the answers. All right, so hopefully you tried these. On number 8 here, I'm gonna start my parentheses. Now my factors for 6 are 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. So here I have some options. The nice thing though is that when I look at the 5, the only factors are 1 and 5. So now I'm going to see, like, okay, 1 times 1 is 1, 6 times 5 is 30. Let's see, 1 times 5 is 5, 6 times 1 is 6. Well, 6 and 5, they do subtract, give me 1. Okay, let's see, 2 and 3, 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 5 is 15, that's not going to give me 1. 2 times 5 is 10, 3 times 1 is 3, that's not going to give me either. So it is 1 and 6, and of course I have to use 1 and 5. Okay, but now I know I'm going to have x and 6x. Okay, so the 2 and the 3 didn't work. And then I wanted 1 times 5 and 1 times 6 to get me 5 and 6, so that if I have -5, that would give me +1. Okay, so I already used 1 and 6, and I want 1 to be multiplied by the -5. So that means -5 goes here, and +1 goes here. So again, I'm going to check that just to make sure I got my signs right. I didn't get it right in the last one. So 6x squared minus 5x plus 6x minus 5. So these would combine to give me +1, and I would get the last two terms. Okay, number 9. Okay, so I'm setting up my parentheses. Again, the a value here is 1, so I know I just need x and x. Now I want to look at the factors of 24 that give me 4. So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Okay, so let's see. 1 plus 24 is 25. 24 minus 1 is 23. So that doesn't give me 4, so I'm going to cross that off. 2 plus 12 is 14. 12 minus 2 is 10. That doesn't give me 4. Okay. 3 plus 8 is 11. 8 minus 3 is 5. That doesn't give me 4. Okay, 4 plus 6 is 10, and 6 minus 4 is 2. Well, none of them work. Okay, so that will happen. Okay, we haven't really had this happen yet, but not everything can be factored with the factoring methods that I've showed you. So you would write not factorable. Okay. Yeah, some of them can't be factored, so we can't use GCF on that. They don't all have something in common. We can't use difference of squares because it's not 2 terms. We can't use grouping, it's not 4 terms. And when I tried my method of guess and check for a trinomial, none of those combinations give me that -4 in the middle, so it is not factorable. Okay, that will happen sometimes. Rarely, but it happens. All right, so hopefully now you kind of got more of a look at that guess and check if A is not 1. Okay, there's a required practice Canvas quiz for you to do. It is titled Period 6, E-Learning, week of March 23rd. You can take this as many times as you need to get the score that you want. Please be careful when you're factoring that. I believe it has 5 questions on it, so I'm not trying to get you to do like a whole bunch, but you do need to start trying to figure out how to combine those numbers to get that middle term if that A value is something other than 1. Okay, and there is some optional practice. There's a worksheet attached on Canvas with the answers so that you can check your work. You know, if that kind of helps you just kind of practice some more. I will not see if you did that or not. That's just there for you to get better as you wish. Okay, please make sure you're emailing me with questions or concerns. Like I've said before, I wish that I was teaching you this in class, but that's just not how this worked out. Okay, so please stay safe and healthy, and make sure you're communicating with me and with your other teachers if you need help, and with each other to help each other out. Okay, you know, please try to stay up to date on your work. We are going to have to continue more e-learning after spring break since we're closed through May 1st now. and we will be kind of cycling through some things and making sure that you can do your work. Please email me if you have questions. Have a great day.